Good evening, and thank you for being here tonight. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and I appreciate all of you who have done work already for the Yes on 8 campaign. As I was driving in, I saw a lot of bumper stickers, and I saw the yard signs that will be going up, and so we're thrilled to see that people are taking their faith to action, and we thank God for that. God has led the way in this through the entire time, and if I had the time, I could tell you about incident after incident after incident where it was clear that God had opened the door and allowed us in, and so we praise Him together with you tonight. We know that there may be people in the room tonight who are actually here listening in from the other side. We welcome them. We know that oftentimes we say things that we think are oftentimes in private or in a church setting, and they make the papers the next day, and we know that the opposition is going to do everything that they possibly can to win this battle for the soul of California and this nation. It was about 15 years ago when I took a position at Focus on the Family, and I was there for several years as the vice president over public affairs. I had a nice, cushy office. I looked at the Pikes Peak, and it was really a nice thing, you know. And then God got a hold of me, and I'm not sure I'm appreciate it yet. We'll see. But He said, "Ron, I want you back in California," which is my homeland, and my wife's as well. And we felt the call of God to come back. And so we started California Family Council with the blessing of Focus on the Family. Dr. Dobson kind of shook his head and said, "Are you sure that's what you want to do?" And he knew all that was going on in California. Well, the answer is yes, and we were thrilled to be back, and we know that it was the call of God on our lives. But in early 2005, I was at a conference in Washington, D.C. when I got the call that Judge Richard Kramer from the San Francisco Superior Court had decided to rule Proposition 22, passed by the people of this state, 4.6 million people, 61% of the voters at that time, Judge Kramer decided to overrule and call unconstitutional Proposition 22. And it was then that the coalition that was there in 98, 99, and 2000 to pass Prop 22 came back together. And we got a call, and since that time it's been nothing but activity because we have tracked, we've surveyed, we've done the polling. We know that this is winnable. We know that today the numbers continue to be winnable. You'll hear from the opposition that it's a lost cause. You'll see in the media, you'll see numbers that say we've lost this already, some even down to 38%. Frankly, folks, those people, the field poll has never been accurate historically. It was 12 points off the day before Prop 22 passed. And so it continues to be off. And we know that across the country, people don't express themselves accurately or honestly until they get behind the curtain in the voting booth. A lot of folks are afraid of being politically incorrect in this culture and saying what they really believe, even when they're polled. You know that across the country, on average, every vote that took place for defense of marriage in every state was polled at 7 points lower on average than the actual vote. And some as high as 21% of the people were unwilling to state the truth of their perspective until they got behind the curtain and voted. But we know that today we must win. And that's why we're so grateful that 2,500 pastors have come out consistently on conference calls and what they call webinars in the high-tech realm. And they've come together on a monthly basis, 2,500 pastors in California. And so we know the evangelical population is standing up, and they're saying, we've come too far. We don't mind that same-sex couples have rights and benefits, but we do mind when they choose to take the term marriage and apply it to their own relationships, because that's not what God wanted. I was fortunate to preach in a church last weekend, and I had my PowerPoint up there, and it's real basic. It's real sequential. It starts at Genesis 2, and we trust it and we believe it. And God called man and woman to be together, and He ordained them in marriage together. Why? Because they were two people in love? No, absolutely not. Because He wanted to see His name honored generation after generation after generation. And we go to the Gospels and we see Jesus honoring that and reaffirming that. And we go to Hebrews where the writer says, be sure to keep marriage pure. So that's, men and women of God, that's what we're attempting to do. And everyone that you know, please contact them, communicate to them, send them emails about all that they should know about what's forthcoming. Because again, it's not about two people in love. It's about men becoming civilized, frankly. And I can tell you this from personal experience, and every man in this audience can do the same if they've chosen to marry. Because when you do find the woman that you love, and you're compelled to listen to her, and when the woman that I loved prior to my marrying her told me that my table manners were less than adequate, I became more civilized. When she told me that my rust-colored corduroy were never again to be worn, I became more civilized. Marriage was established by God because of generational health, societal good, to civilize men, to protect women, and we know this, to bring up children in the knowledge and truth and grace of God. And to the best of our ability to bring them up in a home that has both a mother and a father. That's what it's about. And it started thousands of years ago, and the other side is attempting to redefine the meaning and purpose of marriage. Just as the Attorney General redefined the title on the ballot. Now, for those of you who have received the ballot, you see that the language that Attorney General Jerry Brown chose to use is prejudicial. And people who are uninformed will read that and they'll think, oh gosh, that's harsh. Because it used to say limit on marriage. And every ballot initiative title up until Jerry Brown chose this one always stated clearly and simply just the purpose of the initiative. Never before had the effect of the initiative been stated. But Jerry Brown took that opportunity to say, instead of limit on marriage, eliminates right of same-sex couples to marry. And so those people who go to the polls, evangelical, Catholic, Mormon, it doesn't matter, uninformed, may be moved by the emotion of it all to vote no on 8. But the reality is the purpose of marriage was established thousands of years ago. And if we don't protect it, then every public school child will be indoctrinated. If we don't protect it, as the education code in this state clearly states, then marriage must be taught. And if marriage is taught, and we don't protect traditional marriage, we don't restore it, then every child in public school will be taught that there is no difference between same-sex marriage and traditional marriage, which, by the way, happens to be biblical marriage. And so we know that there will be consequences at the public school level, and we know that our society and culture will be changed forever if we don't stand up right now, this day, in this time, for this culture, for the sake of God, to honor and glorify Him in all of our passion. Yes? Yes. With all of our passion. We thank God that over 40,000 people have canvassed neighborhoods already, and nearly 1 million doors have been knocked on. And all it took, when we asked someone, do you plan to vote yes, plan to vote no, or are you somewhere in the mushy middle? If they weren't a solid yes, 80% of the time, all it took was to tell them that, did you know that every public school child will be taught this? Oh, and they would flip. And that's the role that we have to play with our family, our friends, and our neighbors, is to encourage them to know the truth. People are getting married, same-sex couples are getting married in California. They're coming from other states where they reside. They're getting married here. They're taking it back to those other states. And within a matter of months, there will be lawsuits in those other states to force those other states to accept their legal marriage. And we know that this will be a national issue in a matter of months. I was speaking with Alan Sears, the president